They said the Department of Justice was independent, above politics, beyond reach. Yeah, they said that, until Pam Bondi walked into that Senate room. What unfolded inside those four walls didn't just shake Washington. It ripped open the myth that America's justice system still stands apart from power. Here's the kicker. What began as an oversight hearing turned into a televised dissection of whether justice in the United States still belongs to the law or to whoever controls it. October 7th, 2025, room 226 of the Dirksen Senate Office Building. Attorney General Pam Bondi takes her seat. Camera lights everywhere. The nameplates read Senate Judiciary Committee. Behind them, the battle lines of American politics. On paper, this was routine oversight. In practice, it was a trial, not of one woman, but of the system itself. Bondi arrived carrying a thick binder labeled Restoring Justice. She smiled, but the room was already tense. Just days earlier, her DOJ indicted former FBI Director James Comey on charges of false statements and obstruction. The announcement triggered resignations inside the Eastern District of Virginia, firings of senior prosecutors, and open revolt from career attorneys who warned that politics had finally infected prosecution. Now the senators wanted answers. Bondi's record was already controversial. She'd served as a Florida Attorney General before joining Trump's inner circle during his first term. When she was confirmed in 2025, critics warned that loyalty might outweigh law. By the time this hearing began, that warning felt prophetic. Chairman Chuck Grassley gavelled in at 10:03 a.m. He promised a fair discussion. 10 minutes later, fairness was gone. Senator Dick Durbin opened fire. "Attorney General, you've turned the Department of Justice into a campaign headquarters." Bondi didn't flinch. She leaned into the microphone. "With respect, Senator, I'm ending the weaponization of justice, not continuing it." The room murmured. That phrase, weaponization of justice, became her shield. But to the senators facing her, it sounded like inversion, the accused claiming innocence by redefining guilt. Durbin pressed harder. "Did the White House instruct you to pursue the Comey indictment?" Bondi smiled thinly. "I don't discuss private communications with the president." Translation, yes, but not on camera. Senator Blumenthal jumped in. "Are you refusing to confirm White House involvement?" "I'm refusing to participate in political theater," she shot back. That's when the temperature changed. Bondi wasn't testifying, she was fighting. The Comey case was only the spark. Durbin brought up the quiet reshuffling inside DOJ. At least 12 career prosecutors reassigned or forced out since September. He cited internal memos referencing mission realignment. Bondi called it management discretion. Then came the Epstein files. Senators demanded to know why portions of the unsealed Epstein materials were suddenly reclassified under her order. Bondi refused to answer, citing ongoing review. That answer landed like a confession. Across the dais, Senator Sheldon Whitehouse whispered to an aide, shaking his head. Even Republican Senator Thom Tillis looked uneasy. Every time Bondi deflected, the optics grew worse. Each silence felt louder than an admission.
Halfway through the hearing, reporters noticed something else. Bondi's binder wasn't a policy notebook. It was a talking points war manual. Tabs labeled Durbin, Blumenthal, Epstein, Comey. Inside, printed tweets, headlines, personal notes like, "Don't let them trap you." When cameras caught the pages, Twitter exploded. For many watching, that was the moment the myth of independence died on live television. Outside, the coverage turned feral. Reuters called it the most combative DOJ oversight in decades. AP led with Bondi faces fury over, quote, weaponized justice. Even conservative outlets admitted the optics were, quote, rough. By evening, every network played the same clip. Bondi glaring at Durbin saying the DOJ will not be bullied by politicians protecting their friends. The irony was inescapable. Inside DOJ headquarters on Pennsylvania Avenue, morale cratered. Staffers texted each other memes of the hearing, half in humor, half in dread. One message leaked later read simply, "Independence gone." Sources inside the department described what viewers couldn't see. Since August, the newly created Weaponization Working Group had ordered reviews of prior investigations involving Trump allies, cases that were quietly dropped. At least 5 middle-level prosecutors resigned rather than sign retroactive closure memos. Others stayed, fearing replacement by politically vetted newcomers. When news broke of those resignations, Bondi called them routine transitions, but senators already knew the pattern. Purge the career officials, insert the loyalists, then call it reform. By the time Bondi entered that Senate room, the purge was public record, and yet she doubled down.
3 hours in, Senator Amy Klobuchar brought the hammer. Madam Attorney General, does the president decide who your department prosecutes? Bondi's answer was razor thin. The department acts independently, always has. Klobuchar cut her off. Then why was the Comey indictment announced minutes after a White House meeting you attended? Silence. Bondi glanced at her notes. Coincidence, she said. Laughter rippled through the gallery, not friendly laughter. For the first time, Bondi looked rattled. But then she pivoted hard, accusing Democrats of ignoring real crime spikes and focusing on personal vendettas. That pivot became the night's viral quote. When the gavel finally dropped after 4 hours and 23 minutes, the headlines were already writing themselves. Bondi had survived the hearing, but barely. What she'd proven wasn't strength, it was defiance. Democrats left the chamber promising subpoenas for internal DOJ communications and Bondi's meeting calendars. Senator Whitehouse said, if this department has nothing to hide, it will hand over every email. Republicans, on the other hand, praised her as a fighter. Senator Hawley said she stood her ground against political bullies. In the middle sat the truth. The Department of Justice now looked less like an institution and more like a battlefield. Within 24 hours, leaks confirmed that at least 8 more DOJ officials had submitted resignation letters. One internal memo warned of operational disruption due to public confidence loss. Translation: the department's own people no longer trusted its neutrality. Bondi called the walkouts good riddance. That quote became the next day's front page.
Public trust numbers tell the rest. A Gallup survey released that week showed confidence in the DOJ dropping to 37%, a 10-year low. Among independents, it was 28%. For context, the FBI's trust rating after the Comey-Clinton controversy in 2016 was 52%. This time, the damage wasn't about one case, it was systemic. News anchors called the hearing a mirror moment, the nation seeing itself without filters. For millions watching, the question shifted from, is Bondi biased, to, is the system salvageable? Inside the White House, aides framed the clash as a win. One official told reporters she did exactly what the president wanted. She showed dominance. That single word, dominance, chilled Washington. Dominance isn't independence, it's control. And control is contagious. Already whispers spread of new DOJ investigations targeting journalists who'd leaked internal memos. Bondi dismissed those claims as misinformation, but the fear was real. When institutions start fearing themselves, you know the ground is shifting. Late that night, Bondi returned to the DOJ headquarters. She was photographed entering through the back entrance. No entourage, no cameras. Inside, staff said she met with her inner circle until midnight. What they discussed hasn't leaked. What happened next week did. A directive went out to all U.S. attorney offices titled Priority Review on Politicized Cases. It ordered teams to reevaluate the basis for politically sensitive prosecutions. Translation: go through old cases, decide which ones to shut down. For some prosecutors, that email was confirmation of their worst fears. For others, it was a loyalty test. Either way, it proved one thing: the hearing hadn't slowed Bondi down. It accelerated her mission. And that brings us to the question nobody in that Senate room dared to ask on record. What happens if she succeeds? What happens when the Attorney General of the United States can rewrite the meaning of justice while half the country cheers her on? Because if this model of control spreads, if every future administration learns that oversight hearings are just performance and accountability is optional, then independence isn't wounded, it's gone. And here's the part nobody's talking about. What if this actually goes forward? What if this is the new normal? What if the DOJ never goes back to being independent at all? Hold that thought. What happens if she succeeds? That question isn't hypothetical anymore, because in the weeks after that Senate hearing, the answer started to write itself, one leaked memo, one firing, one televised statement at a time. Within 10 days, the Department of Justice announced a new Integrity Review Directive. It sounded noble. It wasn't. The directive allowed Bondi's hand-picked oversight unit to re-examine past investigations into Trump-era figures. Translation: reopen what benefits you, erase what doesn't. Career staff called it reverse justice. Whistleblowers described internal pressure to realign priorities with executive expectations. That phrase, executive expectations, landed like a grenade in legal circles. Because once prosecutions serve expectations, independence is officially dead. The Senate fallout was immediate. Democrats drafted a resolution to censure Bondi for defying oversight. Republicans blocked it in committee. Cable news lit up. Pundits debated whether the country had entered an era of judicial populism, where the crowd decides guilt and leaders deliver punishment.
And yet Bondi thrived in the chaos. She toured FBI field offices, praising agents for their renewed loyalty to the mission. She smiled as crowds chanted her name at rallies. It wasn't the behavior of a bureaucrat under fire. It was the confidence of someone who understood that outrage can be armor. Inside the DOJ, the purge continued quietly. Emails obtained by reporters revealed that several senior prosecutors had been reassigned to a new ethics realignment program. The irony was impossible to miss. Prosecutors known for independence, now labeled ethically misaligned. Internal data later showed resignations spiking by 18% in October 2025, the steepest single-month exit rate since Watergate. A leaked morale survey asked employees if they believed the DOJ operated without political pressure. Only 31% said yes. That number mattered, because legitimacy and justice isn't measured in cases won, it's measured in belief retained. And belief was vanishing. Outside government, America split again. To Trump loyalists, Bondi became the warrior who finally cleaned house. To everyone else, she was the executioner of impartial law. Social media turned it into spectacle. Memes of Bondi slamming the gavel. Hashtags like Justice Restored and DOJ for Trump trending side by side. The same event, seen through two realities. Polls reflected it. 79% of Republicans said the DOJ was finally fair. 84% of Democrats said it was fully compromised. In numbers, that's not polarization, that's fracture. A nation where truth itself now votes along party lines. This isn't the first time a government's law enforcement branch turned political. In 1973, Nixon tried it. The Saturday Night Massacre. He failed because his subordinates resigned in protest. In 2025, Bondi doesn't face mass resignation. She replaces the resignees. Different century, same temptation.
History also offers the Weimar warning. When citizens lose faith in courts, they start seeking justice in politics. That's how law becomes revenge, and revenge becomes policy. And here's where the danger deepens. This time, it's televised, monetized, algorithm amplified. Each scandal fuels engagement. Each outrage earns clicks. Outrage has become currency, and Bondi knows how to spend it. Look closely, and a method emerges. Every controversy strengthens her narrative. I'm fighting the swamp. Every critic becomes proof of persecution. If they hate me, I must be right. It's political judo, redirecting every blow into energy. Behind the scenes, advisors study polling, showing that law and order remains Trump's strongest voter base motivator. So the DOJ becomes a campaign stage. Not through slogans, through subpoenas. A senior White House strategist reportedly described it in one memo: public accountability must feel visible, decisive, and televised. That line explains everything. Visibility is the new virtue. Justice doesn't need to be fair, only cinematic. Meanwhile, the machinery of justice creaks. Federal judges start requesting additional security. 3 district courts delay rulings in politically sensitive cases, citing integrity concerns. Whistleblower hotlines receive triple their usual volume. State attorneys general from California to Massachusetts form a coalition pledging to safeguard prosecutorial independence. Bondi dismisses them as grandstanding liberals. But investors notice. Legal risk indexes, which track corporate exposure to government actions, spike by 22% in October alone. Why? Businesses fear political targeting. If the DOJ prosecutes by allegiance, no one is safe. Markets understand something Washington doesn't. Stability depends on predictability, and predictability dies when justice becomes partisan.
Inside the department, fear turns personal. Prosecutors stop taking controversial cases. Agents delay investigations involving political donors. One internal report warns of analysis paralysis across divisions. This isn't incompetence, it's self-preservation. When doing your job can destroy your career, you stop doing your job. A senior FBI supervisor described it perfectly. It's not that we're ordered to stay quiet, we just know where the lines are and we draw them ourselves. That sentence should terrify everyone, because once self-censorship becomes a habit, authoritarianism doesn't need enforcement. It maintains itself. At its core, the Bondi Doctrine rests on one illusion, that justice and loyalty can coexist. They can't. The moment loyalty becomes a metric, justice ceases to be justice. This isn't about left versus right. It's about power, discovering that accountability is optional. And every administration after this one will remember. Democrats will copy it, refine it, justify it as payback. Republicans will expand it, perfect it, brand it as efficiency. And each side will swear it's temporary until they need it again. That's how democracies fade, not in coups, but in convenient exceptions. So where does this go next? Let's walk through the possibilities. Scenario 1, the consolidation. Bondi survives every hearing. Congress moves on. The DOJ becomes normalized as a presidential arm. Future attorneys general take office already political. Public trust never recovers. But because the economy stays stable, most Americans adjust. Independence dies quietly, without protest. Scenario 2, the rebellion. Whistleblowers surface. Leaked audio exposes direct White House interference. Courts intervene. Bondi faces censure or forced resignation. The system reasserts itself, scarred but breathing. Yet the precedent lingers, ready to be resurrected when convenient.
Scenario 3, the spiral. Neither side wins. Bondi remains, but investigations pile up. Democrats retaliate in blue states. Selective prosecutions multiply. The DOJ fractures into political wings. By 2026, trust ratings fall below 25%. At that point, the law still exists on paper, but not in spirit. Each scenario ends with one truth. The line between law and cower is gone. Whether it fades or snaps doesn't matter. The result is the same. The Constitution doesn't enforce itself. It relies on people choosing restraint. When that restraint breaks, no statute can repair it. That's why this moment matters far beyond Pam Bondi or Donald Trump. Because if justice bends now, it stays bent. Future generations won't remember the excuses, only the shape it left behind. The irony is brutal. A hearing meant to prove independence may have buried it instead, and history will record this not as a scandal, but as a transition, the quiet shift from justice as principle to justice as possession. So, here we are, a nation divided between those cheering for dominance and those begging for restraint. A department once feared for its neutrality, now feared for its loyalty. Ask yourself, is this accountability or theater? Reform or revenge? Is America safer because of this hearing or simply more obedient? Because when truth becomes partisan, law becomes optional. And when law becomes optional, freedom becomes fragile. That's the crossroads we're standing on right now. Not someday, not metaphorically, right now. If you think justice still matters, share this story. If you think independence can still be saved, don't just watch, speak. Because the future of the DOJ won't be decided in a Senate hearing. It'll be decided by whether the people watching still care. And that is the part no one in power wants to talk about.